evening, one and all. Welcome to a very chilly Carrow Road. It is the Tuesday bit, the Saturday-Tuesday schedule. Norwich City at home to inform Luton tonight. We're expecting the team news to drop any second now. In fact, here it is. Norwich line up like this. 3 changes. Gibson, Sarah and Aaron Ramsey all in. Demetrius Giannoulis on the bench. So Norwich City line up like this. Angus Gunn in goal. Aarons, Hanley, Gibson, and it would be no Pryor, I don't think. So that would be McLean, I'm guessing, at left back. Gibbs, I'm trying to make sense of it. Sarah as the 2 potentially, with Dowell, Sargent on the wings, Ramsey behind Pookie. If I've made sense of that, hopefully. I'll go for that again. Gunn in goal, Aarons, Hanley, Gibson, and McLean looks to be the back 4. Gibbs and Sarah as a midfield 2. I suppose you could even push that to a 3 and with Kieran Dowell in it. With probably Sargent on the left again, Dowell on the right again, with Aaron Ramsey behind Tammy Pookie. Norwich City South bench: Tim Krul, Isaac Hayden, Todd Cantwell, Danel Sonani, Onel Hernandez, Marcelino Nunez, and Demetrius Giannoulis. Paddy Davitt, good evening. Your thoughts on that first and foremost? 3 changes for Norwich City tonight. Probably not unexpected given what Dean Smith said in the wake of that Watford defeat.
No, but even so, I mean, there's no. I mean, the fact Giannoulis is on the bench and there's no Byram, you'd have to think would seem to be quite a demotion to come straight out of the 18, let alone the 11 for Byram. So we'll pose the question to Dean Smith after the game. Certainly yesterday morning there was no indication there was any issues, but as is the nature of those press conferences now, that's before they train. The timing of that, so whether something's happening in that final training session, but we'll park that for now. The reality is, it does look like, on immediate glance, and there's a 3 that I can't quite see there defensively, that and wing backs. It is McLean in at left back. And to be fair, Saturday morning in our papers, I did have McLean at left back because I just thought he might go that route, but he retained Byram just because he's such a fan of McLean. He's loath to take him out of the 11, and if he had to accommodate him at left back, I could have seen that. As it is, it looks like that might be the way he's gone tonight. More interested to see Sarah back for him in from the start, because I think his inclusion was probably fairly compelling now. And as I sort of study this lineup in more detail, I see that's no Nunez as well. So he spoke in the sense that he thought he'd had an off day. Marcelino against Watford, for me, I think that's been a bit generous. I think he's been not on the levels that he has shown in the last 2 or 3 games, really, for me, and that's no surprise that he comes out, and that's probably a reflection on the miles that he's had on the clock for club and country, but I felt that needed to happen. Sarah definitely needed to come in. He's retained Gibbs. That's a show of faith in the young man after more or less admitting he got it wrong. He probably shouldn't have played him at Watford. And Ramsey back in. Yeah, I can see that as well, although he has retained Dowell. So, I'm very interested to see how this lineup looks, but with Pookie, with Sargent, with Dowell, and with Ramsey and Zara, there's plenty of attacking threat there. But I guess your eye is drawn immediately to that defensive system. Gunn only now playing his 2nd league start of the season, and in front of him, seemingly, if it's a flaw, then that's 2 changes from the weekend as well. So you could probably argue they needed to shake things up after how poor they were against Watford in the first half defensively, but there's still a question mark there now about how that 4, if it is a 4 in front of Gunn, gel. But further forward, there's certainly attacking threat. But very intriguing to see where Kenny McLean lines up.
Indeed, the Luton team, they've made 3 changes as well. It's a debut for Alfie Doherty tonight, so they line up in a 3-4-1-2-1, from what I can gather. So they line up with Horvath in goal, Bree, Lockyer and Potts as the back 3, Onyedinma, Campbell, Clark and Bell as the midfield 4. Obviously that may become wing backs. Cornick and Doherty behind a certain Carlton Morris, who makes his Carrow Road return this evening. Some former Canaries on the bench: Isted, Bradley, Berry, Adebayo, Henry Lansbury, of course, who once had a loan spell here under Paul Lambert in that championship promotion-winning team. Luke Freeman and Cameron Jerome, who scored that goal. You don't need me to say Cameron Jerome scored that goal at Wembley in that playoff final. But Pad, I mean, it illustrates what Norwich City are coming up against tonight, and probably the run that they're in at the moment. They're kind of falling out of a little bit of form. They'll be hoping that tonight they can prove it's somewhat of a blip, but they're also playing against teams who are are both in form and at the top end of the table. Maybe not so in Preston. Watford obviously have aspirations of climbing up there. It's not where they are at this moment in time. You'd expect them to be a lot closer to it come May. Luton have the second best away record in the Championship. They haven't been beaten since August. They beat a QPR side on Saturday 3-1, which under Mick Beale has been very impressive. So no one should be under any illusions as to how tough tonight is going to be against the Nathan Jones team that works very, very hard.
And as you're talking there, Connor, I just wanted to double check, and I am correct that Onyedinma really caused Norwich a lot of problems when he came here with Wickham. I think it was the second Championship winning season under Farke. It was a empty Carrow Road that day, but very direct, very powerful, and maybe they're looking at that vulnerability if you're Nathan Jones in the Norwich back four, which we saw visibly at Watford, and they feel there's a route to some joy there tonight, particularly obviously with Carlton Morris, who we know is a big, bustling, powerful forward, and he won't lack for motivation today, that is for sure. It's a big night for him, coming back to Carrow Road, first appearance, full stop. September's Championship Player of the Month, worth pointing out as well, and Luton's record signing. So, yeah, I don't think there's any doubt with that selection from Jones, particularly with those two out-and-out front players that they feel they can get at Norwich tonight. And so what I said in my opening remarks for me is where this game probably hinges now. It's how that, if we work on the principle it is a 4 and it's Aarons and Lee back in his rightful position on the right of a 2, Gibson more naturally left-footed obviously than Omobama Daly and McLean. How do they cope with what could be quite a direct, physical, aggressive Luton? And you have to respect those numbers you pushed out there, Connor. I think said to Dean Smith yesterday, these for me are probably the form side in the Championship now. One defeat since August the 17th in the league, building on a playoff push last season, which I don't think anybody outside of the Luton camp probably would have predicted. So there's clearly a sense that there's a momentum behind that club. Nathan Jones is a very in-your-face type character, but he obviously gets this group of players playing for him, and there won't be any inferiority complex here. Not with the results that Norwich are putting on the board at the minute. They will feel they can come here and, as Preston did, as Watford did, feel that they can exploit any vulnerability in this Norwich lineup. And I think that is the game tonight. It's how Norwich's back four cope with the Morrises and Onyedinmas, and if they get their measure there, then I feel further forward Norwich have got attacking players who can hurt Luton. So it's just can they be far better and far more resolute than we've certainly seen in the last two games. Here last time against Preston, some calamitous individual errors contributed to a very disjointed and slack performance, and we all saw what we saw at first half at Vicarage Road. Arguably Norwich's poorest 45 of the season, certainly the angriest Dean Smith will have been with his group. He said he wanted a reaction. He's made 3 changes, so that tells you what he thought of that performance on Saturday. Now it's for these lads, and particularly Gibson as well. Gibson will have been very unhappy, I'm sure, to have had to defer. He's a senior, experienced player who has proven himself at this level before. But when he did have opportunities, start of this season, back end of last, there was too many errors for me individually. So I didn't have any issue with him coming out the side. But due to Omobama Daly's injury, he gets another opportunity tonight. He won't lack for motivation. So both individually and collectively, there's a lot to prove here tonight for Norwich, I think.
Absolutely. The more I look at that Norwich City lineup now, I do wonder if that is going to be a front 2, and we're going to see that midfield 4 again, like we saw against Preston actually, which would kind of be Gibbs, Sarah, either Ramsey or Dow behind Sargent and Pookie. But that kind of lends me on to this question, which is if it is maybe as we kind of said at the outlet, and we'll obviously have to see how it lines up when kickoff comes around. But if it is Josh Sargent in a wide area again, I feel like I'm kind of asking a question that I never felt would ask with Teemu Pukki in a Norwich City lineup. But are you surprised he's persisted with that? Because I think we've probably been watching Josh Sargent score goals and perform very well in moments, particularly, you referenced it, I think, on the podcast and possibly in a written piece as well, that Sargent's goal came from a central area. That is where he wants to play. I think every time you speak to him, he's very candid about that. So if this is Josh Sargent again in a wide role, which, as I say, doesn't necessarily read like that 100%, but if that is the case, is there an element of surprise to that given his recent form?
Well, no, not really, because that's where Smith's mind took him for Watford. having, I felt, in that first 20 minutes against Preston, yes, we know the result got away from them, but I don't think that was a result of twinning, essentially, Timu Pukki and Josh Sargent with, as it was that day, Ramsey behind them. Now, I'm famous last words, but I think Ramsey's inclusion for me does hint he's decided to go back. I mean, he said he was tempted to retain that 2-1 against Watford. He decided against it. But I think tonight we'll see that again. And if that is the case, then, those questions about almost shoehorning Josh Sargent into your plans, we can park them for the moment. And hopefully, if it is the two, that they carry on where they left off in the opening 2025, where, Sargent against Preston was unplayable, really. He was everywhere, got his goal 2 minutes in. So, yeah, we won't say definitively with Dean Smith, but I think that's probably more likely to be the three, with Ramsey ahead of those and Pukki and Sargent, and then it's about.
Do you, just on that, do you have fears about the physicality in that midfield? If we're seeing Ramsey and Dowell in there in central areas with Liam Gibbs in there, who is a physical player by nature, Gabriel Sara, who is maybe physical in the athletic sense rather than the kind of big, muscly, strong, willing to contest sense. Would you worry about that when you look at maybe Luton's midfield tonight?
Well, you would, but then we've kind of set it up as Luton, and I must confess I haven't seen enough of them really to sort of shoehorn them into a style of play, but I just think with Morris, with Onyedimma in this side, they're going to probably try and go back to front as quick as they can. And maybe Smith, if that's the way his mind's working, feels maybe it's not the midfield area that necessarily where the dominance needs to be. It's defensively to subdue that. And obviously then having that mobility at the top end of the pitch and that goal threat. I was just going to say, I mean, if it is that way, then, you're asking really Aarons and McLean again to provide that width and balance in that type of system when it's essentially a narrow midfield four. And clearly Yanulis on the bench would offer that, but much like with Hayden, you're not going to bring him back in that early in his return from an ankle issue. But it is going to be intriguing, because if the game kicks off and it is Pukki on his own up top with a three where Sargent's more on the left-hand side, I don't think that makes Norwich any more robust, because essentially you've still got the same players. You've got Dowell, as he showed at the weekend. Defensively, he's not going to offer you too much, I don't think. Gibbs, by nature, he's not that type of player. He's going to go and snap in and, relish the combative element of it. And Ramsey, again, a very good technician, but I don't think he offers you anything in terms of the combative nature of what you want from midfielders. So whether it was the 2 and 3 or whether it was the 3 and 1, you're still going to have the same personnel. So, yeah, let's hope that it's as he said to us yesterday. Yes, they respect every opponent, but today he said it'll be 80% about what we can do and how we impose ourselves on Luton and how we go about the task, rather than everything has to be broken down and put back together again to try and nullify Luton. Yes, of course, you have to respect the opposition, but I think 80-20 to me sounds about right. It needs to be about, and not in an arrogant way, but we feel we're better players and we're going to impose our style and how we want to go about it on you. And then it's for you to try and deal with those problems. So if that's the way he's going, then you play Sargent and Pukki up top, you put Ramsey behind and you say, we're going to attack you and let's see if you can handle that. And then obviously when Luton do inevitably get periods in the game, you're asking an experienced four, which it would be if it's McLean, Gibson, Hanley. They've got plenty of games under their belt at this level that they will be able to deal with whatever Luton throw at them. So, yeah, I just hope it is that he's true to his word and it's you worry about us rather than the other way around. And this is how we're going to go tonight. And it's going to be Sargent and it's going to be Pukki. And we're going to get the service in both centrally and wider with the two fullbacks. And let's see them do the damage that we know they can do to any team in this championship. Despite all this talk around Sargent, he sits there tonight at kickoff, joint top scorer in the championship. That's no mean feat. And he's left a few out there as well. So, why wouldn't you want to get him in the width of the penalty area where he can be most effective? And it's proven to be so far this season.
Indeed. Matt Hood has asked if we can repeat the lineup. Certainly can, Matt. This is how Norwich City line up. Angus Gunn in goal, Aarons, Hanley, Gibson and McLean as a back four. I've changed my mind for 4-3-3. I do think Paddy is right. I think we're going to see that kind of 3-1-2 shape. So I think it'll be Gibbs, Sara and Dowell as the three, with Ramsey behind the front two of Sargent and Pukki. Of course, don't know that for sure. We're kind of speculating at this point. Norwich subs: Krul, Hayden, Campbell, Sonani, Hernandez, Nunez, and Yanulis. So that's how Norwich City line up this evening. 3 changes from the defeat to Watford. Paddy, very quickly, very finally, how do you see this game going?
Joseph Bridgewood, we are going to win tonight. So, yeah, I'll take that. And if it was Sargent and Pookie up top, I'd fancy Norwich to go and win tonight because they need to. You know, Dean Smith said quite candidly after the game at Watford on Saturday night, with this group of players, you shouldn't be losing 2 games back-to-back in the Championship. If that's the case, then you certainly shouldn't be losing a 3rd one. So, yes, Luton will make it very tricky. But it's really a night for both Dean Smith and those group of players to step up again. You know, Park, maybe the debate, which feels forever and never ending about the performances and the lack of cohesion, and just get the result and get this thing back on the road. Because if they don't get a result tonight, we know what's on the horizon. Sheffield United away Saturday, Burnley the following midweek. And then it gets very, very fractious, I think, is probably the diplomatic choice of word, because if you're not able to get a result tonight, and if you leave here tonight and it's 3 on the bounce they've lost, those questions are going to get louder and louder, more searching, more exacting. So those players know that. They've been around the block enough of those. They know they need to perform tonight, particularly in front of these home fans. You know, the last memory of these home fans was that pretty ropey performance and defeat against Preston. So they need to put that right, irrespective of what happened at Watford. But I'd be reasonably confident that the odd goal winning, maybe 2-1 Norwich, if Sargent is up alongside Pookie. Yourself, Connor?
3-1 Norwich. I think we'll see some sort of response, and if we don't, I think I'll be quite concerned, to be honest, when it comes to my video verdict after the game. There's Carrow Road. We will be obviously here this evening to provide you with 5 updates should you want them on the Pink and Plus app. Plenty of analysis and reaction after the game as well, be it from Dean Smith or be it from ourselves. Keep it locked to our channels. You may be able to see in the distance that Norwich City have got the fire boxes. I'm going to describe them for want of a more technical term. Boxes where the fire comes out of. So that shows that there's a desire to get the atmosphere going tonight. Let's see how it transpires. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you again very soon.